Hey y'all, welcome back to Let's Talk About It with Courtney. I am so excited to be here. Well, it is Friday after Christmas, and I hope your holiday was magic. Mine was so different than any other year, to be perfectly honest. I've been talking a lot about chapters after my separation and my divorce, and even this new chapter of moving into Washington and not having things turn out how I exactly thought they would turn out. And I'm like living in a space today of like gratitude for it. But when I was thinking about when or how to record this week, I just no time really felt great. Um, Mostly because I worked my butt off Monday and Tuesday to get all my clients in that I could get in before the holiday. I I am a single mom. If this is your first episode, welcome. Um, and you just kind of have to fit it where you can fit it. I own my own business. I don't have PTO. I don't have time off. If I miss work, I don't get paid. My daughter's dad is out of country right now for work, and so he's not having his usual allotted time with our daughter as well, which is completely understandable. Like, that doesn't bother me at all, if I'm being honest. I'm used to that piece of that. And it was still a great day. She got to talk to her dad. We did presents, and oh gosh, the coolest thing ever. She actually lost her tooth yesterday, her first one ever. And I just remember thinking yesterday, telling her, I'm like, you get Santa and the tooth fairy, and what? How cool! Yeah. So I just like kind of lived very presently this week, and I was actually just downstairs, and I was like, should I go record today? Maybe I'll skip. People would understand. It's Christmas. And then I went across there's like this kind of how do you explain it? Did I mention I'm like terrible with like social media? I'm doing my best. I'm working on it. I am not very tech savvy. That's a good way of saying it, I think. And I think the girl at the podcast, TikTok account, Instagram, and Facebook, you're like, how do you not know how to do this? I'm still learning. So, but there's something that went viral. Well, if it hasn't gone viral, it's gonna be. And there's this prompt. It's called, and I'm reading it because, again, if you haven't been in here, I am Courtney Carroll. I am your licensed therapist. I skipped this step. In Washington and North Carolina, I am your connection coach, relationship guru, whoever I am to you, and I am obviously the host of this podcast. Well, there's this viral question you can ask ChatGPT. And I don't know about you, I'm like new to ChatGPT, like literally only a couple months. How I lived in a world without it, I have no idea, but I'm here for it and I'm ready. But I saw it and I immediately thought, like, well, one, I want to see what this looks like for me, and two, I think this is my podcast episode. But basically, there's a prompt that says, can you type in ChatGPT, can you make an interpretation image of my mental health, and what would it look like as a portrait in a museum? My ChatGPT, probably similar to yours, has used my voice and my work and everything I kind of worked through, especially with posts for social media and how I talk through things. So I weirdly trust this, right? I'm like, I wonder what it will say. And I'm with the promo, or not the promo, the link for the podcast. I'm going to also put it as like one of the images that's with it. I've never done that before, but I think it's really important that you can kind of get an idea to see. I just dropped my piece of paper. And what happened is, and you're going to see it, is my head's down like this. I think that works, right like this. And it looks like the weight of the world is on me. There's some storms, there's some fire, like floating debris, like fragments, and those are kind of like designated as like memories, maybe some intrusive thoughts. And then there's also this like beautiful glow there. So like right behind me is like the glow, but in the back is like storms, clouds. And then over here is like branches, thorns, and like floating debris. Like, again, I think when I asked for an explanation, it kind of gave me an idea of what those means. And having the weight of the world covering my face, holding it together, And just the big glow is like what I love the most about it. Because I was like, it's so weird. Like there's some beautiful like glow be right behind me, but there is so much out here. And honestly, I couldn't have, I like how cool is AI technology, ChatGPT? Like I couldn't have made that up. And at first I was like, wow, is that dark? um, if you know me by now, if you've been part of my life in this podcast and my journey, or if you are a friend of mine, a mentor of mine, or whoever you are to me, you know me at all, I'm a pretty positive person. I really am. Um, I am aware that I've gone through some shitty things. I'm aware of why I became a therapist. I'm aware of like anything I've gone through has not just made me stronger, but has given me reason and purpose to help other people going through hard things. There's so many times in my life where I'm like, is this where it stops? Or haven't I had enough? So again, like the darkness was like there and making sense and the fragments going around. And I was like, yeah, that it totally aligns with me. That makes sense. Because sometimes I do have intrusive thoughts. Like I am human. And I recently have connected with someone, and I think when you meet someone new, like what I love about meeting people new, because they ask you questions that aren't like your normal everyday questions. And I think when you're asked questions like, how do you manage holding space for everyone and going through hard things? How do you manage being a single parent without a solid, like I don't want it to sound bad, co-parent, or without a big support system that, or assuming you do and realizing you don't. And how do you manage all of that? And that's why when the description was like the weight of the world, I was like, sometimes I do feel like I have the weight of the world on me. But mostly, like being honestly, not really about my client work. I am like, I could cry. Like I love being a therapist. I love bearing witness to magic and how things unfold and how my clients stretch themselves to their max. When my clients are at their max or they hit their limits and then they just think there's nowhere or no more oomph to give, we create in our shared space options, timelines, exploration, what ifs. And I love the what if part. What if this wasn't sent or meant to destroy you? What if this is truly uncovering something for you? When you are down to nothing, and I'm sorry if there's a little skip, I had a little pause. My daughter's home today, and I don't ever pause or edit videos, so you get what you kind of get today. But when my clients are down to nothing, and they are embracing a new option, it is magic. There are so many times when we have the option to really fall apart. And don't get me wrong, that is part of it. You fall apart for sure. And I think that's where the darkness happens in that portrait I was kind of painting for you. When the darkness is there, like that's why we go to therapy. That's why we get help. That's why clients even hire people like me in their lives, right? Is to share this darkness, to not be alone in it. And when I'm having this like picture come alive and I'm realizing like I carry the weight of the world alone, but honestly what I loved the most was that glowing light I told you about, and knowing that there is perspective, knowing that there is insight here, and that just like lights me up. It made me want to like jump on and record. Like if it's repetitive, I have literally been like, I think I did 16 clients in 2 days, which is a lot for a therapist. I have done all the rapping. I've played Santa. I've played all the things this week. I was, the magician behind the magic this week, and I love all of that. And when I think of painting my mental health, and I'm just thinking, like, of course there's the fragments, like the floating debris, the memories, the intrusive thoughts. Of course there's intrusive thoughts. Of course I question if I'm making the right decision. I, of course, am. I'm responsible for my daughter. I am her primary care, and that's a lot of weight. Like, this is like, I'm not just a temporary placeholder. I am her mom. And then when I think of the work I do, if I fall apart, you know, I have people counting on me, relying on me for help. And I'm, again, honored to do it. I love my job. But like, there is, if I lose it, like, what happens, you know? So I love the interpretation of it. And I kind of like, I just keep going over. I don't ever take notes, you guys. If you ever like, they're like the first time people are like, what is she doing? She's looking at notes. But the mind under the weight of it all, the covering my head, trying to keep it together. And there's so many times where I think we are always just trying to keep it together, or always trying to look like this. I have a very, personal friend in my life that he just has to always have the image of everything being together. And it costs him in such a big way. Like, I don't know how he does it. Like, literally how, just trying to keep this mask on to just hold the weight of the world. And this is not a client, this is a personal person in my life, personal relationship in my life. And no, it's not a romantic one. And I just don't know how he does it. And like, that's exhausting. I can imagine what his would look like. I'm so curious if he'll ever do it and what it would look like, this ChatGPT thing. And I was hopeful when I did this. I'm like, maybe it would be all like light and love. And I thought it wasn't. I'm glad it was an honest picture of what I've gone through, and the thorns and the branches flying, the floating fragments. Like, again, like, it's just like, of course it's all there. My history is still with me. You know, I go back and forth if I have a really good memory. I know that sounds, I don't remember a ton in my childhood. And if that's like you, what I would imagine you can resonate with is you were exposed or bear witness to a lot of trauma, or you were around things that you knew you shouldn't have been around. Having a mom that fought addiction issues and substances and the lying and cheating, like, I can only imagine what my brain did to cover all that up. And I was young. I was under 10 before I had a different relationship with her, before there was like a lot of protection around me, thankfully to my dad. But I don't have a ton of memories before then. And it is a trauma response. But it is like something I still carry. I am very well aware of addiction and recovery. I actually tried to stay as much far away from it in grad school while I was trying to become a therapist about it, because I just didn't want that to be my story. But the fact is, I had an addict mom. I did. I used to think about like how our similarities, I actually said this to my best friend yesterday. That's so funny. I love that. I just can speak freely about how I am probably the only kid in my biological family that looks like my mom. I have freckles. I have very similar facial expressions, and there's a lot of her within me. And if you haven't noticed or been part of my story, my daughter is my freaking twin. So there's 3 of us, my mom and her and me. And I used to think there's too much negative to like be appreciative of the beauty of it. But that's where I go into, of course, my mental picture portrait in a freaking museum is not going to be butterflies and rainbows. And I then, before I started judging it, I'm like, am I a dark person? And again, if you know me, like, that's just not true. The glowing light, the radiancy, it feels very angelic to me. And if you're spiritual, like, kind of looks like an aura to me, like a golden light aura. And I love how I can interpret it with for you is not letting all of that change my core. to not let all of that change the goodness in me, to still hold value of being a good person, to see light and love. I can see a lot of silver linings. I kind of want to call them golden linings right now because the light's golden in the pictures, you'll see. And I love that my heart hasn't changed much despite my childhood, despite what I've gone through as a teenager, blended families, like having a mom that has an addict and a different family and all these things, to the point of navigating and meeting my ex-husband and our 11 years married, 13-ish years together with infidelity and lies on top of a lot of love. There's so much love that was in that marriage. And I think when like one thing I want to add there is like when we split up, a lot of people were surprised. One being that I protected a lot of our history. I didn't tell a lot of family and friends about anything that's happened before. There were a few select that did know, but not a lot. But the existence of love was never not there. Like my marriage did not fail because there wasn't love, or my love for him. I still have like love and light for him. He's my daughter's dad, you know, and I'll always, but what I like about myself is like that hasn't gone away. Does that make sense? Like even with all the heart and all the ache, and even if he doesn't want to look at me the same way as I look at him, or the potential, like what our co-parenting relationship could be, doesn't mean I have to change who I am. I'm always going to hope for more. And not just with him or my daughter or anything, but I am that as my core person. I am always going to want to see light. I will always believe that there's light in darkness. I will always believe that something ugly can turn into something beautiful. I think that's why I get lost in museums. Like when I saw this prompt, it reminded me of going to Paris, and I went for the first time with a girlfriend. We were flight attendants and going to the Louvre and just being mesmerized. I am quite often happiest in front of art or live music. And I think it's just the vibrations and the beauty of things and how they're made. And it's so much of art and so much of music. I'm thinking of Taylor Swift right now. And if you're not a Swiftie, I don't care. I am like for life. And I just think about how much beautiful music that woman has made, and the depth of heartbreak and the depth of hard things growing up in a spotlight. By the way, she's one of many, like so much, right? But what I am honored and love most about myself is not giving up on light. And if you're spiritual, that could mean like still seeing the goodness, still seeing there's so much light on earth that darkness can't take. And all the, like my favorite saying, like truth always comes to light. Like I know that's in the Bible. It's one of the only things I think I quote like regularly. I never ever have to worry about not finding something out. And I know, like, what does that even mean? Like so many times, like with my ex, sorry, I have dogs in the room. If he cheated before, I stayed. I chose to stay. I was very well aware that it could happen again. And so I'm thinking of a girlfriend of mine that would ask, like, well, do you let him go out with the guys, or do you have rules? And by the way, that's such a common culture thing, especially coming from like Ranger Battalion and any type of like special force guys. Like they have opportunity to go out, like, and I'm assuming any branch in the military. Like I have friends, husbands that are Marines, and like I don't think it's not that the Army's not special, because it is. We love them, but it's not specific to them. But a lot of wives don't love when their husbands go out. and everything. And I remember my friend asking me, and we were sitting in her living room, and it's in North Carolina, and she's like, do you have rules? I was like, what? She's like, well, do you let them go out? I'm like, let him? Do I let my husband go out? I was just shocked. And I'm like, is this a culture thing? My friend's from the South, like, am I like weird that I don't? And I was like, it's so, like, I never say my ex's name. I'm so intentional. It's one of the hardest things I think I've done it. But like, I just remember thinking of him, and I'm like, I am not his keeper. And I remember like looking at her, I'm like, what I can trust universally, and I didn't even know what spiritual language was back at that point, is I always find out. Truth, my beautiful friend, always comes to light. I am protected in whatever light that is, even though there's darkness and there's things that come. Truth always comes to light. Does that make sense? So, of course, he could go out. I could never be in a marriage where I couldn't go out or do anything, or like have rules. Like, I just trust that there's respect, and if there's not, it will always come out. And you haven't seen the episode recently, or not recently, been out for a few months. Can you believe this? It's been like almost 4 months of podcasting. I'm so proud of myself for being consistent. The fact is, like, the last time I exited, my closest friend was getting out of medical treatment for cancer in Mexico, calling me about something in North Carolina. That is how good truth and light is, and karma. And yes, like, even just remembering, like, that sucked. But I was so glad I found out. I'm so glad that in the world that we live in, when there's darkness, and if you're in the news, if you're maybe you're in a conflict with your ex, maybe you're struggling co-parenting, maybe this is the worst holiday fucking season you've ever experienced this week. And what I can tell you is something's good coming from it. I can't tell you what, and I can't tell you how, but I just think of everything I've gone through in my life has led me to the next thing. I never thought I would be someone that specializes in couples, sex therapy, infidelity, and divorce, and working with women, and a ton of men too. I have some great male clients, and working actively through divorce. I wouldn't have known that would be my world. I would have known I was going to do a podcast. I wouldn't have known that I will at some point write and have these things, because I wouldn't have had the experience to share and help you today. It's the most beautiful portrait I've seen of myself, because again, my first glance was to go look at it. I mean, like, wow, is that so dark? Like, dang, that's some shit flying around. There's like all this going on, and in my mental health portrait, and then I just saw the aura of golden light, and I was like, oh, that's right. Bad things and dark things have been part of my life, and has been part of my journey. Choosing to work with people, healing and changing their lives and getting help, like, is part and actively in my life. Intrusive thoughts and questioning myself if I'm making the best decisions, or if I'm doing right by my daughter or my family or myself, my business, my clients. Like, I think of that even when I started this podcast. I'm like, what are my clients gonna say? Will people judge me online? Will my friends still like me? How offended will people be? Will people think I have what it takes to speak? And now I just like laugh. I'm sitting here recording, God, but 20 something podcasts, and I saw a portrait. I saw like a viral thing going, and I'm thinking, God, I want to talk about it. And I'm like, oh yeah, going upstairs. I'm gonna go record it. My daughter's home. She's watching a show. I had paused this earlier to like help her. I have dogs, I have cats, I have a zoo here. It's Christmas week. I've jam-packed everything I could into this week. And I'm sitting here so grateful that you take this time to listen to my podcast. That maybe when you go into ChatGPT and you do this, instead of jumping into like that dark, the negative, like what does that mean? Then prompt it for, what would the description be? What would the description be? And when I got that, my interpretation was talking about mind under the weight of the world, and how there's a glowing insight to all the things I did, and I just glowing insight, and I'm like, okay, beautiful. I'm so glad that I can find insight and hope and joy and share it with you and with my clients. I'll never get over how honored it is to work with you. I will never get over, I think, the little comments and questions and DMs I get when something resonates, and I get offered gratitude for posting content to where someone be seen. And I'm not paid for this. I'm not, I have my private practice, I have my business, but like, this isn't something I do to make money from, at least not yet. And I'm so honored for the feedback. And I'm so glad that you're not alone. And I'm so glad you took the time to join me and listen to this viral ChatGPT thing. And instead of learning to immediately judge yourself or like, damn, that's dark, to look at the full picture. And I think that's where it's the hardest thing to do, is instead of looking at like those chapters in our life, like we just tend to think of this as just a really shitty chapter. And again, if this is your first Christmas after a breakup, divorce, kids, no kids, like there's so much there. This is a chapter. This isn't the whole book. Look at the big picture and look at the aura. Look at the different beautiful pieces that you can see in your life and interpret in the portrait if you so wish to do this. And I would love for you to share it with me, tag me, and let's get this, if it's not already viral, which I'm sure it is, let's get it more viral. And thank you for tuning in. It is a pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, questions, concerns, comments, please like, comment, send me DMs. I can't get enough of it. If I'm ever delayed in responding to you, it's usually just because I'm being a mom. But thank you for talking about it. So let's talk about it again soon, guys. Until next time.